Get started. So first of all, thank you all for coming to the orientation today, for giving some time out of your day. But even more of a thank you all for agreeing and saying yes when I asked you to be PGC or to be a chair, to be a co-chair, to come back and chair again. There's so many different circumstances here, but thank you all for saying yes. It makes my job easier when I hear yeses when I send emails. So today, this is kind of we're testing this out. You are guinea pigs. This is a orientation for those of you that are incoming chairs and PGCs. We usually have an orientation for all of you once you are chairs and PGCs, but we thought we would have a pre-orientation or a preview of what your life is going to be like in the next year, year and a half, 2 years, depending on your turn. So this is kind of the agenda that we have for today. We have a lot of different people speaking. So I'm going to be mindful of the time and mindful of your precious time. You do have a chat box over there. So if you have a question about anything, there will be time for Q&A at the end. But if you want to type a chat in the question or something in the chat box, you're free to do that as well. Just make sure in the to field it says to all panelists and attendees and not to a certain person or privately, because then we won't get your message. So without further ado, let's get started. First of all, again, welcome. As I have already said, we need you. We need your volunteer. We need your passion. And you all have lots of passion, and we are so appreciative of you sharing your time and talents with ALSC. We can't do the work that we do without volunteers like you, or the people that will be serving on your committees, or that will be in your priority group, depending on who you are. So just to kind of give you a heads up of who's in the room. So we have priority group chairs that are incoming priority group chairs. They are on 2-year appointments. Most of you are single chairs of a committee, so you are here for a year. A few of you are co-chairs or brand new co-chairs to committees that have just added co-chairs, and those are generally 2-year appointments, unless it's a brand new committee, and then one of those co-chairs is a 1-year appointment. So there's so many different flavors of who's in the room, but you're all ALSC leaders, and you will all be working together quite closely in the next few years. So most all of you will be starting your term immediately after ALA annual, which is kind of why we wanted to go ahead and get the pre-orientation going before annual, because you'll hit the ground as soon as annual is over with. So we want to talk a little bit today about your work, but then also about how you welcome on your committee members. Some of your committee members or people in your priority group area will have been around for a year or two. Some people will just be fresh just onto the committee. Some of them, this may be their 10th committee or 12th committee. Some of them, they're eager, and this is their very first committee. And so they're super excited from direction from you. So the second bullet there is doing ALSC differently. So we've been having conversations at ALA annual, midwinter. Also, we had a community forum about ways to do ALA differently, ALSC differently. And so times they are a-changing. And things are gonna happen a little bit differently in the future. And so we appreciate your flexibility in working with us as we find more ways, one, to open up opportunities for everybody to participate in ALSC in an ALA. But then also things are going to change as ALA structure changes. So, you know, if meetings go away or meeting links change or new meetings come available, then we're all going to have to be a little bit, you know, flexible with that. So the third bullet there, equity, diversity, and inclusion. I wanted to tease that out specifically because I was recently attending the current PGC and chair orientation or meeting that they had about 2-3 weeks ago, and the topic of equity, diversity, and inclusion came up. We actually had a couple people from that the Equity, Diversity, Inclusion, the EDI task force that met with the current chairs and PGCs to kind of ask them like, well, what are you doing in the area of EDI? You know, what challenges do you have? And the room was pretty well met by silence, with a couple people kind of scratching their heads and thinking about, well, we could be doing this or we could be doing that. But generally the kind of thought was that, well, okay, there's an EDI task force. They're doing all of it. So we don't really kind of need to do anything. We need to wait for direction from them, which is not true. So all of us need to think about ways that we can include EDI work in our current committees, in our priority group areas. So it is part of our strategic plan, is a big part of our strategic plan. We want to make our organization accessible to everyone. And part of that is through EDI work, and we have a lot of work to do. So just letting you know, when you fill out reports, you'll have reports that you need to fill out. And when you do those reports, you will also be talking about how you are doing EDI work or addressing specific areas of EDI as well as specific areas of strategic plan. So just be thinking about that now. The other thing under there is the Coretta Scott King breakfast. So that for most of you, as all of you are chairs of process committees. Now there are a couple of you though that are PGCs, and PGCs, I'm looking like at you, Carol, PGCs of an award area. So during ALA Annual, the Coretta Scott King breakfast is on Sunday morning. Previously, we had ALSC all committees meeting on Sunday morning, but it conflicted with the CSK. So we wanted to give people an opportunity to attend the CSK breakfast if they wanted. So we shifted the time a little bit, which works out for all of you in the process committees. But for those that are on award committees, it's a little bit of an overlap because a lot of them are still meeting at 8 a.m. On Sunday morning. So the thing that we're asking is a little bit of flexibility for the priority chairs to communicate that to your committee chairs, and we'll be communicating that to the award chairs later, that, you know, if you can still get your work done and be a little bit flexible to allow people to attend the CSK. We can't change the time of our meetings just because of the huge ALA schedule and structure, but we want to be as accommodating as much as possible for people that would like to attend the CSK and celebrate and honor the work of African Americans, authors, and illustrators. So just FYI, I threw that in there. Really, it's just for the PGCs, but if any of you end up finding yourself chairing an award committee, is something to keep in mind as well. So years ahead, your year aheads, I've kind of already covered that, what your timeline is going to be. And your members, I guess, as I mentioned, some of them will have been there for a while and some of them will be onboarding as the same time that you are. I want to talk just a little bit briefly about the leadership structure, and then we're going to hand the mic over to some other people to talk. So ALA is a very complicated organization, and this is very simplified. But I kind of wanted to let you see the chain of kind of how people react, respond to each other. And all these lines really should be arrows, but I couldn't get the little arrows to work out in my nice little graphic as I was making it. But basically, you have ALSC on one side, and then you have ALSC, the association on one side, and ALSC, the staff, on the other side. And so the staff, everybody on the right, the executive director, ALSC staff, and then ALSC intern, if there is one, all of those are supporting the work that we do. And we could not do the work that we do without them. And so for a lot of us, that's over on the left, the work that we have, the work that we do depends upon the support of the ALSC staff. So the ALSC staff, there's usually a staff member, and we'll go over who the staff members are, but there's usually a staff liaison to your committee or your priority group area. And so they can help answer questions that your committee about things that your committee might want to be doing. Maybe you're thinking of something great and wonderful that you want to do. You would check in with them. But Amy's going to be talking about that later, so I'm not going to talk about that. Over on the left is kind of the committee or the structure for ALSC, the organization. So while it has ALSC president at the top, it really is not the president by themselves doing that. It's the work of everyone else working together. So in the green below the ALSC president, those are people that make up the executive committee of ALSC, or the executive board of ALSC. So it's the president, the past president, the incoming president, the fiscal officer, and the division counselor. And so those green folks, along with the blue person at the top, those all make up the executive committee. And sometimes things will come to the executive board for an immediate decision, or to get first thoughts on it before we share things with the ALSC board. And it's not that we're keeping things from the ALSC board. We are just kind of making decisions, thinking about how we can make it information easier and more accessible to the ALSC board that are often overtaxed with so many different things. So we want to help them be able to have as much information as possible to make the decisions that they need to make. So a lot of time the executive committee is getting more information that we can share with the ALSC board for decisions that we need to make. Underneath the ALSC board are the priority group consultants. So each of you that are a chair, you're in a priority group area. And so in your priority group area are several committees, but head of those committees is a priority group consultant who, if you have any immediate questions about something, one, you go to the division leadership manual, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. But two, if you have a question about something, or maybe you need money for something, or if you're thinking about doing something, or you're just not sure how something works, you'll reach out to your priority group consultant, who will then kind of guide you through the process of what to do next. Underneath the priority group consultants are committee and task force chairs. And so that's where most all of you fit. And some of you, as I mentioned, are chairing committee by yourself. And then some of you are co-chairing a committee, and your responsibilities are alternating depending on the year. And then we have task force chairs, and task force is a little bit different than committees. Committees are always around. Task force come and go. And so they are still assigned a priority group area, but they're only for a certain amount of time to do their work. Okay, so let's move on to chair responsibilities. And for as most of you all are chairs, although if there are a couple PGCs, and we'll get to PGCs in a minute, but as chairs, you have a responsibility to the organization and to your committee. You want to keep your members engaged, you want to keep them informed, and you want to welcome them. Make sure that they know what they need to be doing, make sure they feel valued, and keep them motivated. You want to lead the committee in the work that they do, champion the work that they do. You're in charge of organizing meetings, face-to-face or virtual, or both, depending on your committee, if it's virtual or face-to-face. You're communicating with the PGC, if any problems that you have, or just kind of letting them know what you are doing. And you're also completing reports. You have reports that you'll be completing. They're quarterly reports, year-end reports, and when you complete those reports, there's information about how to do that on one of the websites that I'm going to show you. It has a link to the division leadership manual. But those reports, when you are completing those, you are copying your PGC, so the PGC knows what's going on. And then once ALA Connect is fabulously up and running, I mean, it's kind of just started trying to chug along a little bit and get started again, the new ALA, and Ellie will talk about that in a bit. But once it's up and running like a well-oiled machine, you'll be sharing your committee minutes on that so that everybody in the organization can access what your committee is doing. So with that, that's all I'm going to say about chair responsibilities, because I've asked two chairs. One is an outgoing chair of a face-to-face committee, and one is a fabulous outgoing chair of a virtual committee. And they're going to tell you how to be a fabulous chair. So Christy is going to go first, and then Kelsey has her own slide, and she'll go next, and they'll talk about what you need to do to be a successful either face-to-face chair, virtual chair, or both. So I'm going to hand the mic over to Christy first.
Great. Hi, everyone. Thank you, Jamie, for this invitation. I'm happy to share more about my work as the chair of the Public Awareness Committee. And I just want to say this has been an incredible learning opportunity to learn more about ALSC and also work with more people in our community. So it's been great. I'm going to share a little bit about how I've tried to keep myself organized so I can continue the work of our committee. And in case you're wondering, the Public Awareness Committee, our charge is to promote awareness of the value of the excellent library service to all children, to plan, execute, coordinate, and disseminate public awareness campaigns about the importance of library services to youth, and provide public awareness learning opportunities for staff, library staff, and stakeholders. So this is a big part of this is scheduling. Jamie, can you go to the next slide? Thank you. So immediately after annual, I get our group together and do some scheduling. So I do kind of a Google form and I say, what are typically the best days for you to connect on an online virtual platform for us to have a monthly meeting? This happens pretty quickly. We were all so busy. We look for the ideal date, and our commitment is to try to be there and let me know in advance if you're not able to. And I have to say this has worked really well. I send a calendar invite, so it's on our calendar, and I use that to do our standing meeting reminders and whatnot. That's worked really well. We've tried ALA Connect, we've tried Zoom, we tried Google Hangout, and most recently GoToMeeting. So we've been really flexible and experimental to figure out what platform is going to work for all of us. And why this is important? Because it locks in time. I don't know about you, but I'm super busy in my work and my volunteer service, but if it's on my calendar, it's going to happen. So that's one of our recipes for success. Moving on is connecting. So this is the season as an incoming chair, you are connected with incoming members. So I take that opportunity as soon as I get that email from Marcia to say, hey, welcome, I'm your chair. I would like to schedule time either by phone or email to get to know you and welcome you and share what we're doing as a committee, what our charge is, and be really transparent about how our work supports ALSC and in turn all the children and families that we serve in our communities. That's been really great. I also connect with my priority group consultant, Nat, who's been a great ally. And then also, if I haven't already met my ALSC liaison, I reach out to her, and Angela's been fabulous. I feel like our communication between the three of us has been really seamless and helpful for me to understand what our work is. I also, because the appointments are made this season in spring, I invite them if they're coming to ALA to join us at the meeting. So hopefully I can meet them in person and have them get kind of a preview of what our work is to come. And moving on is contributing. As we all know, this is volunteer service. It's very near and dear to my heart. And it's really important that we continuously acknowledge the contributions that each person is making to the committee that forwards our work as a group. So we do this in kind of, e-blast, whenever we have a new blog post or at the beginning of our virtual chats. I think it's just really important to acknowledge everyone's contribution. And the touch point that I make right before midwinter is that I send them a thank you note. I write them what I've noticed, what I appreciate, and how their contributions have made our work possible. And also sharing my excitement to seeing them at midwinter. So I love a thank you note, a personalized one. And I want them to know how much I appreciate their work. It's a good opportunity to remind them about a group project that you're working on or the extra effort that you are anticipating at the midwinter meeting. And that leads us to conferencing. If you're chairing a committee for 1 year, you have 2 opportunities to meet as a group for face-to-face time, and this is really critical. So you want to make sure that you're making the most of this, building the relationships, because your service together often will build a friendship or a kindred spirit and another resource that you can seek that goes beyond your committee service. So it's really important. I arrive prepared. I have an agenda packet leading up to annual. We're contributing to our year-end report, so I put that in there so we can reference it. We build the agenda together in the previous meeting, so that's what we'll be working on next month and getting ready to go. And I also try to bring a goodie from my work. We all have swag, a summer reading tattoo or a summer learning tote or something. I always have at least 10 things hanging around my office that I can offer up as just a small thank you. And I try to do that. And then I also try to get myself ready for the in-person meeting because I really want to be present. And those meetings are at a big room with lots of noise and lots of visitors. And I just remind myself that as much as I want to like plow through an agenda, really being together is a big part of building those relationships and building that alignment so you can continue the work outside of the conference. And we end our conference meeting with roses and thorns. I'm sure many of you have some sort of debrief exercise, but I like to hear from our committee members, like what went well for this particular in-person meeting? What do we want to hit the repeat on in our next meeting? And is there anything else that we need to discuss as a group in our debrief? And I think my final tips to offer as an outgoing chair is have in my email system, I always have a little email group. So I know I'm consistently emailing the same people that need to know for my committee, and that just helps me organize. And we have a shared Google folder, which I'll pass on to the incoming chairs too, just so there's that transparency of our work and the access to files when they need it. I think that's all from me. If you haven't had a chance to chair, I hope that you do it with great enthusiasm and great appreciation for your committee. It's a real professional growth opportunity. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Christy. So my name is Kelsey Johnson Kaiser. I'm the Youth Services Manager for the St. Paul Public Libraries in St. Paul, Minnesota. And I'm the outgoing chair of the Managing Children's Services Committee, which is a virtual committee. So there is no responsibility for conference attendance for members of the committee, but as the chair, I still go to the conferences. So I'm just gonna share some information that's a little more specific to virtual committees. A lot of what Christy talked about in terms of communicating frequently, setting up meetings ahead of time, that kind of thing definitely applies to virtual committees as well. And I will also give Christy a shout out and say she's a really great chair. And I feel like I learned things about chairing from her, even though I'm about to be done with this little stint on the Managing Children's Services Committee. So thanks, Christy, for sharing all of your really great knowledge. So I would say one of the challenges for virtual committees is that there isn't that opportunity to meet in person and kind of get to know people and build that rapport through conversation at the conferences. So trying to develop that virtually is something to really keep in mind. So kind of like Christy talked about, starting out as a chair, as people are on your committee, new members, reaching out to them and welcoming them, telling them you're excited about working with them. And then also as a whole group, emailing the entire group to say that you're excited for everyone to work together, providing a little bit of background about what the committee does. So what is your committee charge? What are the projects that you are either currently working on or have recently finished up that would be useful for incoming members to know? And then another piece is just kind of expectations for, especially for a virtual committee. What does that look like? What kind of a time commitment might people be expecting? That kind of thing. And then also making sure to do introduction of yourself and then ask that people introduce themselves via email, since it might be a little while before you have your first meeting, really trying to get people to start to get to know one another and learn a little bit about each other before you have your first meeting. We really learned in the last several years that I've been on this committee that trying to meet on a platform that allows video and audio is very helpful versus a chat. It can be nice to be able to put a face and a voice to a committee member, a fellow committee member. It's not always an option for some people. I know some of our committee members are really limited in terms of what they're allowed to do at work via online communication. So also having something that includes a chat function has been really helpful for us. So we've been using Google Hangouts this year, and it seems for the most part to be working well, because then we can do full video and audio, just audio, or just the chat function for people that aren't able to participate in both. Like Christy said, setting the year's meetings in advance is really important. Doing it right away, having it for the whole year so that it's on everybody's calendar. We've had quite a few meetings that have changed, but knowing when they're coming up is an important piece of being able to kind of be ready for them and prepare in advance. So one thing that I've really tried to be diligent about in the fact that we're only meeting virtually is to set up our agendas and communicate about the meetings in advance. And I admit I am not perfect at that, but it's sort of an ongoing goal. So looking at what have we talked about at the previous meeting, thinking about what needs to be coming up and talking about those things and adding those to the agenda, and then sending it out ahead of time so that people have a chance to look over it and add any suggestions or things that are missing or extra things that need to be talked about. So giving people an opportunity to participate in continuing to build the agenda, I think, is really important. During the meeting, it's a lot of kind of setting things up early on, so trying to do some introductions. Even the first couple meetings we did introductions because sometimes somebody couldn't come to one meeting, but they could come to the next meeting. So for a while we had kind of a mixed group of who was new and who wasn't. And then also making sure to share the charge, and the charge that our committee has. I don't know it off the top of my head, but that's something that I have on all of our meeting notes so that it's really easily referenced, and it's something that we can easily pull up. So the agenda and the notes are connected, and so it's always present there on the stuff that we're working on. Capturing meeting notes has proved really important because a lot of times not everybody from the committee can be present at a meeting. So capturing the notes and, like Jamie mentioned, posting them on ALA Connect is really important, but also emailing them out to the rest of the group and particularly highlighting some of the most important pieces that we might have discussed. So I use a Google Doc format for our meeting agenda. So I take the notes right in with the agenda and I'll send people the link afterwards, but I'll also pull out really specifically something like, note that we all need to have our webinar proposal form submitted by June 11th or something like that. So just in case people are kind of scanning through, they have at the outset an idea of what the most important pieces from the meeting are that they want to make sure they're paying attention to. Then just a couple of other tips that I think can be helpful. One is continuing to do email check-ins and being as clear and direct with expectations as possible. I know that's something probably a lot of us work on in our daily work, and especially being in a very female-oriented environment. I think sometimes it can be a little challenging to be really direct, but I think that is a very useful way to ensure that your team members know what's going on and know what they need to be doing. Another piece, especially again, virtual committees, there's not in-person time. So as the chair, you really have the ability to set the tone. And so trying to be friendly, approachable, welcoming, enthusiastic about the work, those are all things that can be really useful and help especially new members know kind of what the vibe of the committee is and hopefully be able to participate in an enthusiastic way. Also with that, just again, balancing, people show up in different ways, and somebody might be outwardly enthusiastic and talk a lot and participate a lot. Somebody else might be really enthusiastic, but maybe they're quiet or they are more introverted, and so their natural inclination isn't to jump into the group. So just kind of paying attention and balancing some of those pieces. One big tip that I can offer that I think I, in retrospect, wish I had done more is to reach out to your priority group chair. Anytime you have questions, there were some things that I kind of had questions on, but I thought, oh, I'll just wait and see. And I ultimately did ask, but then wished that I had asked earlier so that I could have had that information earlier on. So I would say really recommend, don't hesitate to ask questions or to check in or just say, this seems a little strange, or I'm looking for some advice on this. What do you suggest? Really keeping them aware of what's going on in your committee is very helpful. And another piece is that remembering as the chair, you don't have to do all of the work. So really encouraging your team members to step up to coordinate or lead projects, ask who wants to participate, maybe who wants to be the coordinator of a project. Remembering that as the chair, you do a lot of coordinating for the committee in terms of meetings and some of those pieces, but it's not your responsibility to take on the work of the whole team. It's your responsibility to kind of encourage and provide opportunities for everybody to have a chance to participate. And that brings me to my last point, which is that participation, especially in virtual committees, can be a challenge when you're not all in the same room and building that rapport. That can be hard. And when there's not a time that everybody is technically required to participate in a conference, that can be hard. So I actually, in the last year, don't know that we've had a meeting where every single one of our committee members has been able to be present. And that can make it difficult to encourage participation and to get people to really come forward and identify themselves as wanting to work on a project or be part of some of the committee's work. So really ask for help from your priority group chair. If you have other committee members that have maybe been longer standing and that you know well, checking in with them and asking if they have any suggestions for encouraging participation. And I think, again, at the beginning, but kind of throughout the term that you have, trying to make it as clear as possible that the expectation is that everybody participates in one way or another, and the way people participate might look different depending on what they're comfortable with or what their personality is like, but that the expectation really is that everybody is participating. And I think the more direct and repetitive you can be about that in a friendly, approachable way, the better chance you have of cultivating a team where everybody is sort of bought in and understands their responsibilities for participating. So those are kind of the pieces that I have learned and picked up over the last conference year. Hopefully that's helpful. And thanks so much for having me, Jamie and Elizabeth.
All right, thanks, Kelsey, and thanks, Christy. We appreciate those words of wisdom and advice that you have for us. So moving on, as I mentioned, some of you are priority group chairs. So your responsibility as a priority group chair is a little bit different than your responsibility the responsibilities of committee chairs. And most of you that are priority group chairs have been a committee chair at some point. So this is kind of like just the next step up. So basically, it's like being a mega committee chair. So you're serving as a liaison amongst all the committees that are within your priority group area. You're encouraging collaboration among the committees in your priority group area, as well as collaboration with committees in other priority group areas. And you're kind of being the liaison with the ALSC board or ALSC staff. You're assisting with committee concerns, helping to field questions, and you're finding answers to those questions. You're prompting your chairs to complete reports. Well, everybody in this room is a very diligent person and likes to meet deadlines. We are all busy and sometimes we forget. And so we have people like Matt who has to go nudge, 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 nudge. You know, you haven't turned in your report yet, nudge, nudge. And so, you know, it's important to turn those reports in. As a priority group chair, you're also reading the reports that the committees in your priority group are completing and helping the ALSC president and ALSC staff identify any concerns that are there so that we can address any actions that are needed, any requests for money, any requests for assistance. Some committees might want to change their charge or their name or whatever. And so that, you know, needs to be facilitated through filling out specific forms. So the priority group chair can tell you what forms to fill out, what you need to do. And the PGC is also facilitating member and chair transitions. So when members come on and go off, the PGC knows about that. When a chair is rolling off or a new chair is coming in, the PGC also knows about that, kind of helps to facilitate that transition between old and new. With that said, I'm going to turn the mic now over to a fantastic outgoing PGC who's going to tell you what it takes to be a fabulous PGC. So go for it, Matt.
Thanks, Jamie. Hopefully everybody can hear me, and hopefully I don't repeat too many things that everybody else has already talked about. One of the fun things I've been able to do as a PGC, I've been able to work with Christy, been able to work with a ton of great chairs. I see some of them here in the room today. So you guys are awesome and really make my job a lot easier. So what is the role of the PGC? Well, as Jamie just mentioned, we are one of the liaisons to the committees. So one of the things that PGCs should do, and committee chairs, I'm going to say this from my experience as a PGC, but it does apply to you in the what you should expect from your PGC as well to some degree. So introduce yourself to the committee chairs via email when they're appointed. That just helps them have a person to know as soon as they are appointed. But then also introduce yourself again at annual or midwinter when you see them at ALSC committee or in one of the meetings that you attend. The PGC is a liaison between the committee chairs and ALSC. So we can help you with your basic questions. We can help you with some of the more advanced questions if we have the experience. Or hopefully we know the right person to connect you with within ALSC who can help you if I'm unable to help you or the PGC is unable to help you. Also, you should come to an agreement between yourself and your committee chair with how much interaction they would like. So encourage your committee chairs to meet with their committees frequently, but also find out from your committees what they expect from you. I think it's always good to make sure that you are available as much as the committee chairs need. And I've suggested to my committees, and I think Christy and Kelsey bear that out, that you should meet monthly is a really good model for meeting with your committees. So attend leadership and ALSC at both conferences. That's important, and I think that is something that sometimes not everybody knows. I think it's also important to invite the chairs to attend and let them know that that is one of the expectations of chairing a committee, is to attend leadership and ALSC. Also, before leadership and ALSC, we have a priority group consultant breakfast where we meet together to discuss some of the important information that we'll be sharing out during leadership and ALSC. Which is another reason why the committee chair should attend that meeting, so that everybody kind of has the same basic important information. And diversity and inclusion is one of those things that I think we talked about at the last meeting. At all committee meeting, then it's a fun treat to be able to go meet all of the committees, introduce yourself as the liaison, and just help them know that you're there for anything that they might need to help get their work done. I found it helpful to get to know the ALSC staff who are assigned to the committees that I liaison with. Sometimes I get sometimes there's a transition that I didn't realize happens, but everybody's super easy to work with and super happy to point you in the right direction if somehow you get in the wrong place at the wrong time. I think it's important to know the ALSC executive director, hi Amy, the president-elect, and the fiscal officer. So those are all people who can help you get your work done as a PGC and help the committees as well. I've also found it helpful to attend the board meetings, especially at annual and midwinter. That's not necessarily the thing that is the most attractive thing about going to a conference, but I'll tell you, it has been super helpful for being able to connect with the ALSC board and the ALSC staff, as well as sometimes things pop up that you can be really helpful with. And when your committees are doing the great work, the board has lots of great things to talk about. And so being there is a really awesome thing to be able to do if that is something that you can do. I think it's important to help the committee chairs find the resources they need. I also think it's important to take a step back and let them do their work. I think it's really important for the committee chairs to realize that the PGC is a liaison, but we're not even a manager really. So we're here to help you do your work. We're help you to provide any guidance we possibly can. Sometimes there's committee members who are having difficulty participating with the level that the committee chairs help. And my role is to help the chair resolve those problems, but probably not to resolve the problem myself. It's also important for the PGC to read the quarterly and year-end reports and remind the chairs that the reports are due coming soon. It's so easy to lose track, and I just did that in April. I sent a reminder out to everybody saying, hey, get your reports done. And then some very patient and nice person said, they're not actually due till May. So, we make mistakes, but it is an important thing for the PGC to help the chairs remember to submit the reports. The PGC should also read the reports, make any notes about things that need to be followed up on, make sure that the board, the ALSC staff, and whoever else needs to is able to follow up on the reports. There are pages and pages and pages and pages of information that the board has to go through. And so it's fairly easy for something to slip through. It's rare, but it can happen. And so the PGC can help make sure that those are happening and followed up on. Also, just reminder for everybody, the board reports are super important because it's one of the key avenues of communication between the committees and the board. So it is definitely an important thing for the chairs to be doing. It's also important for the PGC to keep a note of all of the fiscal requests that are being made and communicate with the fiscal officer. Sometimes there's a request that's not clear. The fiscal officer is really good at checking with the committee chairs, but sometimes the PGC can help answer those questions as well. When appointments are being made, it's also maybe an unofficial role of the PGC to recommend people who stand out that could be really strong in a particular appointment. So the PGC can help out with that. And then connecting the committees with each other. I think the PGC can be a super good bridge. You know all of the things that are happening within your own committees, and at the meetings during midwinter and annual, it's easy to say, hey, why don't you check in with the Public Awareness Committee, because they can help you share that information with the ALSC community. Finally, I just think it's really important to keep a file for each committee. I have the folders in my email, and I just put all the communications in my email. I try to flag everything that needs to follow up, and I'd really try to get back in touch when there are questions within 24 hours. It's a goal. There's nothing written down, but I also don't want the people to be hanging out there saying, oh, where's my PGC? I need them right now. So that is my few minutes. If you have any other questions, I'll put my email up in the chat box as well.
All right, thanks, Matt, and thanks for giving us that overview and those tips as well. So moving on to the other layers of support, you have lots of support to help you be successful in your job as chair or as PGC, and one of those areas of support are the ALSC staff liaison. So I'm going to turn it over to Amy, which is the executive director of ALSC, to tell us more about the role of staff liaisons.
Hi, everyone. Hope you can hear me. Okay, Ellie's shaking her head. Awesome. Well, welcome. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedules to join us for this work today and overview. And I'd just like to echo Jamie and thank you all for the work you are embarking upon with your committee members to assist ALSC in supporting our members to support their communities to create healthy, successful futures for all children. As our Twitter hashtag describes, hashtag we are ALSC. So ALSC is you and the work you do. So thank you. And to help you in all of this work, and a lot of what I'm going to say in my few minutes is a repeat of everything that's already been articulated during this session. But we have supports in place to help you and your committees keep your work moving steadily along without hopefully any undue delays. Things are, issues can be complicated, trying to determine what your committee work will be for the next year and your calendar. And, we have the strategic plan. How does it all interrelate? You might have questions. So as you just heard Matt describe with the role of the priority group consultant, they're there to help be a liaison to help you think through some of that work. Additionally, before I move on to the staff liaison role, some of our committees have a board liaison to support work, and most often our task forces that are established also have a board liaison. task forces are established because a complex issue will develop, or the topic results in the formation of a task force to kind of suss out problems or how we're going to tackle this and create a roadmap for approaching this issue. And so the board is really detailed in its discussions. We assign a board liaison because they have that familiarity with the board discussion and kind of where we want to go, but the board's not going to get into the weeds. So, but they're to help frame the charge and help you embark upon that work. And as Matt articulated, all of these liaison roles, PGC, the board, and the staff liaison, they are not there to usurp the role of the chair. They're there just to be a mentor, a guide, an advisor. So, so in terms of staff, every committee has a staff liaison, and I'm not sure if we pointed out, but there's an error table that tracks all our committees and all of the chairs and the PGCs assigned to that particular committee, and then what reports are required throughout the year. And that's on the website under committee resources. And at the end of that chart, you'll see a list of staff names. On your screen, you see them all, and you'll see them next to each committee. So that's your point person. And they should also be reaching out to you. So they're there to serve as a resource. They understand the committee's structure and charge. They'll work with you also on connecting your work to the strategic plan, keeping the board's priorities in mind for the objectives that are established for each goal area. Many of them have time frames to achieve them within. Let's see, they kind of keep tabs on the work. And our team, we meet monthly to talk about the work we're doing. So as we talk, we might say, oh, I'm working on this with this committee, and that might be of interest to another staff liaison. So they're there to kind of bridge across our own departments. Oh, I need to market that, or we should talk about that, or put that in the journal or the newsletter. So it's very important that our staff liaisons are kept up to date with the work you're doing, or projects you might be planning, so that we can fit it all within our marketing calendar and other types of things. We also nudge, as Jamie and Matt mentioned. They may also nudge you to provide a reminder about reports that are due, and they're happy to talk about elements to put in the report and that type of thing. And they're also responsible for reviewing the reports to also see if there are any issues that need addressing, or to help you with a roadmap for potential project that you're thinking of. They're also there to help you set up conference calls, or how do I work in ALA Connect, or anything that requires maybe staff assistance in that aspect. Let's see. They're also there to facilitate work from your committee that may impact another area of ALA. For instance, we have our own ALA Intellectual Freedom Committee, and then the ALSC Intellectual Freedom Committee. So we might hear something internally here within the ALA headquarters, and then can go back and say, oh, heads up, we just heard this. This may be coming down the pike. Just want you to be aware of it. Let's see what else. They're there. They have the institutional knowledge. Why reinvent the wheel? Did the committee 10 years ago discuss this? What was their project? They can go into the files and access old reports, or we have access to the archive, that type of thing. So some historical background they'll be able to provide. So Jamie's alluded to how much work we're all doing. So as you can see on the screen, we have 8 staff, and we have 8 staff to handle 70 plus committees that are working, committees, task forces, and discussion groups. And among those 70, we have 9 book and media awards. Some of those are co-administrated with other organizations, which adds a little extra detailed work to manage. We have 3 notable media committees. We're in the process of implementing 3 new awards: Excellence in Early Learning Digital Media, establishing the platform for the new Notable Digital Media, which will replace the Great Websites for Kids platform, and a Media Mentorship Award. We administer 7 scholarships, 7 different professional awards. We have 5 major projects, including DIA, Every Child Ready to Read, Everyday Advocacy, Babies Need Words Every Day, and one other one. And then 3 grant projects, robust number of CE and webinar programs, and many of our committees are starting to do webinar series and other types of things. We have professional development events like our Bill Morris seminar, book evaluation seminar, pre-conferences, the National Institute, our educational programs at annual and midwinter. And then we support member engagement and communications via the Emerging Leaders Program, a 100-student gift membership pilot that we have going on, and our mentoring program. We communicate best practice and information through our blog, our journal, our newsletter. We undertake national advocacy work and working with other organizations via partnerships like the National Summer Learning Association. And we're always working to build new relationships and engage in collaborative work. So for instance, the inclusion of the ALA ethnic affiliates in the 2019 and going forward, Youth Media Awards Press Conference. We've extended opportunities for other affiliates to send members to the Bill Morris Media Evaluation Program. So I highlight this just to show you how large our portfolio is of programs, projects, and services. And so as Matt said, we have a lot to absorb. Our board is reviewing all this documentation and administration. The staff is obviously facilitating all this work. And so that's why, you know, it may be a drag to be filling out these quarterly reports, but that's how we keep an eye on the work that's going on within ALSC and monitor it and see all the connection pieces. So Matt had said he reviews those, the wrap up of all the quarterly reports. I'm not gonna lie, it's 80 plus pages of reading, but it's always in our board documents that come out every quarter. And I do encourage you to review those as well so that you can see the work that your counterparts on other committees are engaging in and maybe look for cross collaboration opportunities. So the next thing I'll do is kind of talk about our 8 staff here. You all probably recognize Marcia Burgess's name because she handles and works very closely with the appointing officer right now, Jamie, to send out invitations and confirmations to secure all the committee member and chair appointments. So she's communicating that type of information and maintaining our database. And then Kristen Filio is currently on maternity leave. She has baby Simon at home right now, and she handles our portfolio of continuing education. Angela Hubbard, who you heard referenced earlier via Christy, is our program officer for projects and partnerships. So she handles quite a large portfolio, our work with DIA, Every Child Ready to Read, and all of our grant programs, such as the Dollar General Literacy Foundation grant, Strengthening Communities Through Libraries, and I think I missed Every Child Ready to Read. Courtney Jones, amazing, does the, as I referenced, all the book and media awards, notables, the 7 scholarships, and the professional awards. So she's got her work cut out for her, and is essential in the event planning aspect of all that work, as assisting with preparing for the Newberry Caldecott Wilder Banquet and the Monday Morning Awards Program and Odyssey presentation, and also the Pure Belpré Celebration. Alina Rivers is our almost a year, so she's still new, but our deputy director, and she is brought on to handle the operations, the day-to-day management of ALSC, our content strategy, and she's been so essential as we launched our new strategic plan about a year ago, and helping to monitor and implement the aspects of it. So she's connecting all those pieces and dots from all the reports you are submitting or will be submitting, and summarizing it so that the board doesn't have to pick and pick and look through all the different pieces. She's summarizing it in a nice document, which is still quite large. Laura Schulte Cooper is our program officer for communications. So she's the managing editor for our Children in Libraries Journal, working very closely with Sharon Verbetten, who's the editor. She writes and creates the ALSC Matters newsletter. So if you have a submission, go ahead and submit that to her. She works closely with our Everyday Advocacy editor and on the newsletter and updating the website. She handles all our tech platforms, such as the ALSC website, the DIA website, Every Child Ready to Read website, and is working very hard at getting the new Notable Digital Media platform up and running this summer to replace Great Websites for Kids. And she manages our electronic discussion list. And Elizabeth, or Ellie as you see on the screen, she's also new to our staff, just over a year. Is our amazing membership and marketing specialist. So you hear quite a lot from her via our news, email blasts, the ALSC blog, social media. She's on it. We're quite robust on our social media, so I thank her for that. And then myself, I've been with ALSC 13 years, executive director for 9, and I work very closely with the board on board governance, developing the budget, and working on strategy and policy implementation, and also work very closely with my ALA counterparts within ALA headquarters on a variety of different projects within ALA. Thank you. So one last parting thought. So sorry I'm taking up so much time, but as Jamie mentioned, we're working to make ALSC nimble and modern and have been asking for flexibility. And so I just wanted to give you a heads up that we'll be reviewing and updating our procedures and documentation this summer to ensure what we're asking for, reporting and other how to request money and that type of thing fits new ways of working. All of this documentation was developed pre-technology, pre-email. I mean, this stuff was developed, in the 90s. And it's just been edited along the way in an ad hoc manner. So we're hoping to really look at it and streamline our work processes. So we hope to launch a new division leadership manual by the end of August. So stay tuned.
All right, thank you, Amy. And again, thank you, ALSC staff, for all that you do. So I'm keeping an eye on the time, and we're gonna go to Ellie in just a minute. She's gonna show us the ALA Connect. But before we do, I want to show you the committee resources that you have available. So on the ALSC website, there are a lot of committee resources available. You can see the URL there. There's the Priority Group Chair Manual, as well as a leadership manual for committee chairs. There's a lot of great resources there. So a lot of those can answer a lot of questions that you might have. So I encourage you, when you have questions about something, go check those resources first. Then go see your PGC, reach out to your staff liaisons and all the support that's available to you. Now, again, keeping in mind that I realize that a lot of people might have to leave at 1. So I wanted to make sure that I'm gonna put my email in the chat box. If you have questions about anything, you can email me and I will work hard to answer any questions that you have. And this recording will be available, as well as the PowerPoint for you to go back and resource as well. So just letting you know it's there, it's available. And with that said, I'm going to go back and I'm going to hand the mic over to Ellie to tell us a little bit about the new ALA Connect. So go for it, Ellie.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm going to try and share my screen here. There we go. So thank you for your patience as we launch the new ALA Connect. We are still, lots of things are still in progress, but we're keeping the energy and we're still excited about it, so that's good. So here we have the ALA Connect homepage. I'm going to try and go through this a little fast. I like to use the little divisions tab on the left-hand side just to find all of them, and I like to log in through the ALSC homepage just because that's the only division that I work with. Then you sign in there on the top right-hand corner, and we'll wait for this to load. And here we are at the ALSC homepage. So we showed you how to log in. So I wanted you to see how to edit your profile. So you'd go to the top right-hand corner there, that little drop-down arrow. As you can see, mine is at 85%, so I still have some development to do on my profile, but we're going to get to 100%, as I hope everyone here will. You'd go to your profile, and that tab is where you're going to make all of the edits. So you can include contact details, bios. I think it's important to fill out all of these interests here. So you just hit this little tab and click all of them. There are so many. And you'd save it, and it'll save. And then you can also get to your committees that you're a part of through here. You go to My Connections tab, and then the Communities tab here. There are many different ways, by the way, to find your committee spaces, but this is just the one that I go to for now. It's been the most accurate. So as I said, things are still being worked on. And when this will load, hopefully we will be up and running. Okay, let's try that way. So you can also access it through this drop-down arrow, the same way we went to our profile. And it is taking a little longer than expected. So let's stop that. And I am going to go to, you can also access your committees and communities that you're a part of through this tab here. Hopefully that will work, because I need to access a space so that way I can show you how to upload files. Here we go. Yay. Okay, so it'll give you a list of all the committees that you're a part of. So I'm just going to go to my membership committee space. And it should, as you all will be admins, so it should look like this in the spaces that you are chairing. And then you will go to the latest shared files, and then you go to add. And I know there was a difference. So in the old Connect, as chairs have posted files, it automatically sends an email to everyone that's a part of that committee. This new Connect does not do that. So once you add something to this library, it will not automatically send an email. You will have to either post a discussion in your space, which will send an email, or you can just email all of your members separately. So we're gonna upload a test file here. You can select a folder. If your space has folders set up already, they should have all transferred over into this new Connect. And for a file type, it's usually always going to be a standard file upload. And then you go to next. So that's one step of the file upload. And then there's another step, which is to choose the file to upload. So you can either choose the file, click this button, and it'll pop open the that browser thing where you can access the file, or you can be like me, and I have a lot of files on my desktop already, and just drag it over. And then you can upload. It will say upload complete. This is going a lot faster than I thought it would, so I'm happy. And then you would hit finish. And this is going to, again, upload your file into that space. And there it is. So your members will all be able to download it. You can see who's, how many views it's gotten, how many downloads it's gotten. You can also edit or delete it there, or that little delete trash can there. And in the interest of time, I had some other cool things to show you, but in the interest of time, I'm going to stop there, as I think that will be the most important pieces for your work. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Ellie. So that's just a little bit about the new ALA Connect. There's a lot of exploring around to do, a lot of good things that can happen. It just will take a little bit of time and a little bit of patience on everybody's part to figure out what's going to work. And as you work on it, if you see any bugs or things that don't work, then let us know so that we can know what to fix. You know, there's some things that, you know, would seem very logical to ask for ALA Connect to have, and that functionality might not be available. And so we have to think of either ways to work around that, or, you know, creative ways to still provide that information. So ALA Connect will become your friend over the next year, year and a half, 2 years, depending on how long it is that you are playing with us in your role. So I mentioned the online resources, and we've already talked a lot about your committee and welcoming your committee, but that's really, really important. The onboarding and welcoming of your committee right after annual is important, because you have a lot of new members that are coming on, and a lot of people that are just really eager to get working, but they don't know what to do. So they're depending on you to show them what to do. The appointment links, most people are appointed on your committee for 2 years, unless they are filling a 1-year appointment, you know, a resignation. And speaking of resignations, if anyone from your committee should decide they can no longer play with you because of work responsibilities, life responsibilities, whatever, then they need to formally resign from the committee. They send you an email. They're copying the ALSC president. They're copying Amy on that email, letting us know that they're no longer able to be on that committee. And then the appointing officer, depending on what time of the year, it's either the president or the vice president, will then work with you to find a replacement for that. And you're also circling in the PGC along with that for the resignation. And you'll find information about that in the ALSC Leadership Manual. Again, a lot of the information that you need is in the ALSC Leadership Manual. And as Christy and Kelsey have so wonderfully done, they've really talked about the care and feeding of members, and making sure that, you know, they are connected with the committee, even if it's a virtual committee, they feel like they have a sense of ownership, you know, that they are participating actively. And so, and if they're not, you know, it's important for you to reach out and nudge them and to help them to connect. And just last but not least, just a few other final matters. And I realize that a lot of you probably have to go, but this is again available for you on the archive. A few other final matters is media requests, financial support, and surveys. So these are some things that you might encounter as a PGC or as a chair of a committee. So if you have someone that reaches out to your committee and says, hey, we'd like your quote, you know, about media mentorship for children. You're chair of the technology committee. Tell us about media mentorship. Why is that important for ALSC? Well, your response is, whoa, I'm not going to respond to that, because you don't want to be the voice of ALSC telling them what we think about media mentorship. So you're going to send that request to the ALSC staff, the executive director, and the communications officer. They, along with, and I would say copy in your PGC so that PGC knows that you've had this media request. Copy in the ALSC president so they know that what's going on. And then the ALSC staff will find out the best way to respond to that media request. You don't respond to that media request. Just forward it on to other people to handle that. Financial support. You might find that you need financial support. Maybe you want to do a project. Maybe you want to do a brochure. Maybe you want to have funding for a webinar. And so you need some money to do something. Well, the ALSC Budget Committee does provide money for each committee to do some work. And you can fill out a form to ask for support to do the work that you do, that you want to do. But if it is a larger sum, then you need to check in. You may have to check in and ask for some money from the ALSC board, particularly if it's going to require significant staff time. Maybe you've decided that, oh, wow, our committee is doing a lot of work, and maybe we want to publish a book. We want to publish an ALSC book about equity, diversity, and inclusion. Wow, that's a great idea. Let's just do it. No, you can't just do it. You got to have some support to do that. And if it's an ALSC book, You know, our staff is going to have to be the ones responsible for editing it and making it pretty and working with ALA editions. And so that's a lot of work, and it's going to take some time on everybody's part and some moolah. And so while it's a great idea, you're going to need to get some support and make sure that you can do that. So you're checking in with your PGC, you're checking in with your ALSC staff member, checking in with your ALSC staff member liaison. I cannot emphasize the most importance of that. At this time of the year, we have a lot of reports that are coming in from various committees, and some of us were scratching our heads going, oh, I wonder if the ALSC staff knows about that. The ALSC liaison knows that this committee wants to do that. And turns out the ALSC staff doesn't know that the committee wants to do that, because the committee chair hasn't reached out to their staff liaison, who could probably have provided a little bit more input. So it's important to reach out to your ALSC liaison as well when you're thinking about doing these things. The incoming budget chair is Gretchen, who is in the room. And Gretchen Kazarati is our incoming budget chair, so she would be one of the people that you would reach out to if you wanted to get some funding. The fiscal officer is Paula Holmes. She is also working very closely along with Gretchen when we are thinking about our finances and what we can support and what we can't support. So those would be the people that you would be reaching out to with financial requests. Finally, last but not least, are surveys. So maybe your committee has decided they would like to survey, you're the Managing Children's Services Committee, you would like to survey children's librarians on management responsibilities. Great. But you can't just develop that survey and send that sucker out. You need some input from some other people. You want to make sure that you don't have what's called like survey fatigue. So if every single one of the committees decide they want to send out a survey, they start sending all these surveys out to the members, then eventually people are just going to stop responding to surveys. Some of you might get good responses. By the 70th committee, you're not going to get a good response because people are tired. They're tired of filling those surveys out. So before you think you want to fill out a survey, check in with the PGC, check in with your staff liaison, whoever your ALSC staff liaison is, to think about, well, what's the purpose of your survey? Why are you doing this survey? What information do you want? Because we might be able to roll that in with some other surveys that other committees are doing. So we can do a 2 for, a 3 for, a 40 for, whatever, how many committees are doing surveys. And so we can, make the most impact of that survey. Or we might be able to gather that data in another way besides the survey. We might be able to do an ALSC blog post and get people to respond to whatever it is. We might be able to send something on the listserv and get feedback. So survey might not be the best way to do that. All right, so that is all that we have. We know this is a lot of information. It's a lot to consume. But the thing is, you've got a lot of time. You've got time before you are onboarding. And that's why we kind of wanted to give you this orientation now in May before you have to hit the ground running at the end of ALA Annual. So you've got almost a month to begin thinking about, what your work is going to be like, what you're going to be doing, looking at your divisional leadership manual, reaching out to your PGC, who your PGC is going to be. So we just want to give that information to you now to think about, mull over, so that you can have the most successful year. And I just want to end with saying, thank all of you again for all the work that you're doing. Thank you so much for volunteering your time, your talents, and just giving your energy to ALSC. And we'll hang on here for a little longer. If anybody has any questions, you can type those in the chat box and we'll answer those. And if any of you need to go ahead and go, that you're more than welcome to do that. Thank you again for attending. We really, really appreciate it.
And just as a reminder, if you do have questions in your to section, please be sure to click all panelists and attendees instead of all panelists. I think that might be the default, but yeah, so that way everyone can see it. Julie,
right.
Yep.
Julie has a question. Yeah, do you want to?
I can promote Julie to panelist and so Julie, you have mic controls. Oh, hello, and video. You can. There you go.
Oh, okay. I just was wondering when this would be posted. So it can be viewed again.
So I it takes a little while for me to download it, but it will be posted before end of today.
Oh, great. Wonderful. Thank you.
No problem.
Wow, that's quick turnaround. Thanks, Ellie. All right, I'm seeing in the chat box, Kimberly asks if we are incoming chair and notice that we aren't a member of our committee's group on ALA Connect. Will we be automatically added after annual, or do we need to request to be added? Ellie,
That's me. I can take that. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. When Marcia enters you into this membership database that ALA uses, the start of your term is officially July 1, and so you'll show up in Connect as of July 1 to have posting rights and admin rights, because ALA connects directly to our membership database. Hopefully that answered your question.
Awesome. Thank you, Amy. Other questions?
And if you need your roster, since it's not posting yet, feel free to reach out to Marcia or myself, and we can get that information to you. I believe on the ALSC website, in the listing of your committees, it'll show the current committee, but if you hit the next button underneath the list of names, that shows the incoming committee. So you can also get a sense of who's on your committee there. Jamie's almost finished with all the appointments. So, you know, you don't see the confirmation email until we get that paperwork back. So he may have an invite out and they may have verbally said yes, but until they finish that paperwork and Marcia sends that confirmation, they're not officially in the system.
Yeah, and just speaking to that, I've actually, all of my committees informally are full. Every position has been filled, but we're waiting for paperwork back from people. So, you know, you should have your committee rosters, you know, soon once, as Amy says, people fill out their paperwork. And, you know, all of you had to fill out paperwork. So sometimes it takes a little nudging to get people to remember to fill out their paperwork, because they think that once they've said yes to my email that they're already ready to be on that committee, and they've got to fill out the paperwork just so that we have everything on file. Other questions that you might have? Okay, so we know that obviously you can't think of every question you're going to have now. So feel free to contact me, your staff liaison for your committee, your priority group chair, if you have any questions. And we'll work to find out the answer for you, find out who we can connect you to, or answer the question ourselves, depending on what your question is. So again, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to meet with us. Thank you so much again for your work, your dedication, and your exciting year ahead. So again, I applaud you. Thank you so much, and have a great day. Thanks.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye, everyone.